What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic. And when it comes to the MCU, it's been quite a fall off since Endgame. And there was a lot riding this year on Fantastic Four, as this was supposed to basically reestablish the MCU and set it up very well heading into Avengers Doomsday. And it seems that the box office is not going the way that they were hoping this summer for the MCU, as the Fantastic Four's box office is struggling and really not breaking the trend of recent MCU movies. And I will contend and I will make my case for this, but I think for all intents and purposes, as the MCU, as we've known it, is basically dead at this point. And I think the box office shows that. And you're likely looking very soon after Doomsday at a reset in the MCU, almost undoubtedly here. But we have an article here from Screen Rant that kind of goes into what's going on here. And I actually have seen Fantastic Four, and I will say of the recent MCU movies, it's a better movie than they've done recently. I honestly think it's better than Superman, even though it looks like at this point Superman is going to end up beating it at the box office. But I think there's a lot of reasons as to why this movie is struggling. You know, as the movie itself, I think is better than many of the recent MCU movies, but I think that it's being drugged down a lot by the movies and shows that have come before it and kind of where the MCU is as a whole right now. So this article here from Screen Rant says the Fantastic Four First Steps box office struggles reveal a troubling MCU trend. It says the Fantastic Four First Steps sadly continues a negative Marvel Cinematic Universe trend set up by the franchise's previous film. Says, when I heard the Fantastic Four were coming to the MCU, I was ecstatic. While there have been fun Fantastic Four movies in the past, the definitive version of the team has only now come to the big screen. The MCU's first Fantastic Four movie is great from start to finish. I think the third act of this movie fell off a bit for me, but overall, it was a very enjoyable movie, very self-contained movie. You didn't have to really see any other movies to go into this one to understand what was going on, which has been a criticism of the MCU movies previously. I think how they kind of handled Galactus, where he got kind of nerfed quite a bit at the end of this. But overall, I think it was one of the better MCU movies of recent history for sure. So the Fantastic Four First Steps post-credit scene is also crucial to the franchise's future, setting up the next two Avengers movies. Based on how Marvel Studios made them feel like a family and their powers shown on screen, I thought Fantastic Four First Steps would be a hit. The Fantastic Four First Steps budget is reportedly $200 million, probably quite a bit higher, as typically MCU movies and Disney movies tend to go. You'll probably find out it's somewhere around $250 million plus after they do all the tax filings. But it says based on that, we can know how much the movie needs to make to break even. The MCU's Fantastic Four movie will be fine if it ends its worldwide run in the $400 to $500 million range. However, Marvel was looking at a profit with the Fantastic Four, which might not amount to much. I actually, at this point, I don't even know if this movie hits 500 million. I mean, if it does, it's going to fall right in line with, many of the previous MCU movies, which were not profitable either. It says the Fantastic Four First Steps took a negative turn at the box office. While DC is having one of its best years in a long time, with James Gunn's Superman movie topping all other superhero entries in 2025, Marvel Studios saw both Captain America: Brave New World and Thunderbolts underperform. Thankfully, the MCU's latest movie is performing better than them, with the Fantastic Four First Steps already passing Thunderbolt's entire domestic box office. However, that does not mean that the MCU movie is a hit. According to box office analyst Luis Fernando, the Fantastic Four First Steps has been one of the worst second weekend drops for an MCU movie. Marvel's First Family ended its second weekend at the theatrical box office with $38.7 million, which is a 67% drop from its opening weekend. There's typically about a 50 some odd percent drop in the superhero movies in general. But 60, almost 70% drop off, that is a massive drop off. And does not bode well for this movie having legs to really, mount much of a continued run, I guess you could say. Superhero movies, particularly Marvel entries, are known for being front-loaded at the box office. That means that a sizable portion of its theatrical returns come in the first few weeks. With such a major second weekend drop and how the MCU's other 2025 movies performed, I find it hard to believe the Fantastic Four First Steps legs will surprise. I agree. I don't think it's going to have much legs, to be quite honest. When it comes to the MCU's 2025 films, a tragic parallel can be traced between Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four First Steps. While the Rotten Tomatoes critics score for Captain America: Brave New World sits at 46%, Thunderbolts is higher at 88%, while the MCU Fantastic Four movie is a little below it at 86%. Based on that, both Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four First Steps received overwhelming positive reviews from critics, but did not elicit the same response in terms of box office returns. It says the MCU's upcoming movies could break that trend. Says I really thought the Fantastic Four First Steps would be able to finish its global run in the $800 million range. I think that's what Disney wanted. I think that's what a lot of the we'll just say the access media were hoping for. As a lot of them, I think, were really rooting for this movie, but clearly the audiences have not agreed with this, which we know is not possible now that we know how it is performing in theaters. However, not everything is doom and gloom when it comes to the MCU's movies. That is due to the franchise's upcoming movie slate. The MCU simply has two of its strongest box office franchises coming back next year. First will be Spider-Man Brand New Day, the follow-up to Tom Holland's Spider-Man No Way Home, which grossed nearly $2 billion. Let's be quite honest. That movie made $2 billion because Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield came back into it. That's why that movie did so well. I don't hate Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He's okay as Spider-Man. And Spider-Man is probably the most popular Marvel character ever created. Probably in many cases, the most popular comic book character that we've ever seen. So it's very likely that Spider-Man will do well, but the problem for Disney and the MCU is the fact that this character is licensed to Sony, so Marvel only makes 25% of the box office from Spider-Man movies. So even if this movie makes $1 billion, Disney Marvel, let's say it has $1 billion in profitability, which is probably not going to happen, let's just say for the sake of that, if that were to happen, Disney's only going to get 25% of that cut. So they're not going to make as much money as Sony makes off of this. So even though this movie can be a hit and help the MCU, Disney and Marvel are not going to see the majority of the money from that. And then it says after that, you have Avengers Doomsday in 2026 and Secret Wars in 2027. The MCU's upcoming Avengers movie has also been delayed. Now Doomsday and Secret Wars will both be released in December of their respective release years. That is the same slot that led to Spider-Man No Way Home breaking the box office records throughout its run. Again, that was likely due to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield being in there. That really helped that one out. It says, despite the MCU's box office woes, all three films seem poised to break $1 billion. There's no way to know how much money. Like, that is literally just them hoping that it makes $1 billion. There's nothing to say and point to the fact that they'll make $1 billion just offhandedly. Now, will Spider-Man make $1 billion? A lot of it's going to depend on really how good these movies are, and that's how the box office is really reacting to these things. I think Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars has the potential to, each one of those make $1 billion because they're going to be full of cameos. You got Robert Downey Jr. coming in as Dr. Doom. You're going to have you're probably going to have Chris Evans come in. You're going to have just tons of cameos in these. So they're very likely to make $1 billion potentially. If any movies have a chance to do it in the MCU, it would be those movies. But the other issue is that the budget for those movies are going to be absolutely astronomical. You're talking about the money they're paying to Robert Downey Jr. You have the Russo brothers coming back. There have been rumors that at this point, at least for Doomsday, they're already up to over $300 million on the budget there, and it could go much higher. As Endgame was a movie that had a very inflated budget, much higher than what many people thought at the time is what it was. So even if it makes $1 billion, that doesn't necessarily mean it's that profitable if the budget is too high. But if any movie has the chance to do it, I do think it is the Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, just due to all of the different characters that will be in it. It says, while the Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four First Steps are not the most financially exciting releases in the MCU, I'm still confident that both franchises could return for sequels and do even better. Now, will they do sequels? It's possible. But at the same time, I think after Secret Wars, very likely you're looking at the MCU doing a full reset. Because the MCU since Endgame has completely fallen off outside of a few movies that have done pretty well. But for the most part, the shows and the movies, overall quality, are nowhere near what it was in the run up to Endgame. So to sit here and say that you think that they're going to get sequels and they would do very well, that is just you hoping, in my opinion, as a fanboy, because you like this movie, that they will do it. But studios want to make money with these movies. And if they're not making money, there's no incentive to do sequels for these. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. The new Avengers, formerly Thunderbolts, and the Fantastic Four have been confirmed to return in upcoming Avengers movies. I'm sure they will. I believe that the superhero team's presence in the Avengers movies, which are historically heavy hitters for the MCU, could boost their popularity, leading to bigger box office returns for sequels. Likewise, with Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four First Steps releasing on digital, more people will watch the MCU entries, helping boost the franchise's return chances. This article is just, it's almost like they're upset. Like, I get they like the movie, but the fact that it is one of the better movies that's still not performing well, you have to ask the question, why? And I think when we get into the why, whether it is superhero fatigue, whether it's bad movie fatigue, I think it is both. I think you have flooded the market with so much content in the past 5 years, especially on Disney Plus and the movie side, and much of it not being good, that audiences now look at the MCU. They don't know where anything's going. You knew when the first, iteration of the MCU up until Endgame, you knew where everything was leading to. And you had Iron Man and Captain America. You had very popular characters that were all part of this story. And this version of the MCU, you don't have Iron Man. You don't have Chris Evans as Captain America. As Captain America is Steve Rogers. Let's be perfectly honest here. That is what's going to draw people to the box office. And you've even taken Thor and made him a joke. And a lot of the characters that made the MCU what it was are either not there or they completely have nerfed those characters to where they're not really that important in the MCU anymore. And I think audiences are responding to that by looking at these movies and just thinking, this is not anything I'm interested in seeing. And you're even seeing this reported varieties here on Twitter X saying, a top agent who represents several Marvel actors says, quote, there's a reset of what a hit is, and I don't see the studio consistently hitting $1 billion as before, without China, with Disney Plus exposure, post-COVID, without megastars. So they're already trying to reset what a hit is. And then you're even seeing some of, I guess you would just call them the access media or people who are very pro-MCU rooting for it, having some pretty wild takes here. John Rocha says, some people won't want to hear this, but it might be time to stop putting all the blame on studios or creatives for underperforming movies. It might be time to start looking at the intelligence level of moviegoers.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
So now we're going to attack the fan base because these are good movies and there's something wrong with the fan base if they don't go see it. If a phenomenally stupid film like Jurassic World Rebirth can crush films like Superman and Fantastic Four at the box office, then something might be wrong with all of us and not the studios or the creatives. So the studios did nothing wrong. They made perfect movies, and it's the audience's fault. That's the thing we're seeing. So we're already seeing resetting expectations. There are even articles out there talking about, is $800 million the new $1 billion at the box office?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
It's all the problem with the audience. It's not the fact that you flooded the market with crap. And the DCU did that as well. I mean, I know people have liked Superman. I didn't care for the new Superman movie. It's done better than Fantastic Four. But if you look compared to, say, Man of Steel and some of the Snyderverse movies, like, it's not doing as well as those. But that was also during a peak era of superhero movies. So I think what you're looking at here, it's not the audience's fault. Like, the MCU flooded the market with a bunch of stuff. DC has everybody confused about what's going on. The general layman person that doesn't keep up with this stuff doesn't know where anything is. All they see is another superhero movie. And a lot of people look at this and it's just too much. And they're thinking, I don't know. I think I'm good. And the fact that it's so expensive to go to movies, you have so many entertainment options at home. Getting people to the theaters is not as easy as it used to be. And they're making these claims in a time period where there have been movies that have made $1 billion. Lilo and Stitch made $1 billion. Disney had some animated movies make $1 billion. What you're seeing is a lot of family-oriented entertainment. Those movies are making $1 billion. You're not seeing the superhero movies do this recently, partially because these movies are not that good. I mean, Fantastic Four is a better MCU movie than we've seen recently, but it's not anywhere near as good as, say, Infinity War or Captain America, The Winter Soldier, or some of the classic MCU movies. And even if it was that good, there's been so much leading up to this of not good. Even this year, Captain America and the Thunderbolts did not perform well. So you already have the third movie for the MCU this year, and a lot of it is just so much stuff coming out. Nobody knows what it is. And so it's not surprising to see some of the people going at the audience about this, claiming it's their fault. And really, I said at the beginning, it was very likely Jurassic Park was going to end up winning the box office because it's dinosaurs. And those movies always make a ton of money because at the end of the day, dinosaurs are cool to go look at. They go do some stuff. They eat some humans, whatever they do. At least it's kind of mindless, numbing entertainment. You can just kind of shut your brain off and watch. And the MCU has not been that before, but I think it undoubtedly the same thing that's happened in the MCU happened to Star Wars, where the decline in the quality is going to affect future films they do. Even if at this, Star Wars comes out with a brand new movie, let's say the Grogu and Mandalorian movie is one of the best movies ever made, I still don't think it's going to perform that great at the box office because of what they've done with Star Wars previously. So a movie coming out right now, some of it is obviously going to be how good is this individual movie, but when you're talking about a greater universe, it's going to be subjected to what's come before it. What is the climate for these movies currently? And there hasn't been great movies coming out. So it just seems like it's another, to the general audience, it's just another superhero movie, another Marvel movie coming out, and people just think, okay. And maybe they just think, I'll wait to see it when maybe it comes out on digital, maybe watch it on Disney Plus, whatever the case may be. But I don't think the MCU has anybody to blame but themselves for this current situation they're looking at. And I think there's a lot of question marks looking at Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Again, I think those movies very likely will do well because you got Robert Downey Jr., you got a lot of hype about who's going to be in those movies, but I don't think it's going to be near as big at the box office as some people think it is because, again, there's not people tuned into the MCU like you had in the first run leading up into Infinity War and Endgame. You're never going to replicate that again to begin with. And Fantastic Four really didn't even set up at the end of Thunderbolts. They set up the Fantastic Four kind of showing up in the universe. They didn't set any of that up in the Fantastic Four movie. So, it really didn't lead that much other than the end credit scene. You did see a glimpse of Doctor Doom, but that's really it. And so they really didn't delve into Doctor Doom much in the movie at all, but it is a very self-contained movie. And again, I think I enjoyed the movie. I liked it better than Superman, but I don't think it was a movie that deserved to be a $1 billion movie. And I think a $1 billion movie, if that's the threshold of success, going and blaming the audience and acting as if these studios are not making any mistakes here, that all these movies are great, and the fact that they're not making as much money is simply due to the audience. I think you're looking at a lot of factors, not only bad movies coming before it, economic factors, how expensive it is to go to movie theaters, and other entertainment options out there. You're going to have to wow audiences to really get them to come to movie theaters, and we just currently have not been seeing that. So Fantastic Four is not doing as well at the box office as many people were hoping, including Disney, and we'll have to wait and see. I think Spider-Man will do pretty well depending on how the movie is, but I think they are looking at potential bright spots with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. But after that, I really think they're just going to have to reset and start from scratch on the whole universe because it's just gone on too long. Nobody knows what's going on. And I think it would be good for them to take a 5-year or so break from making anything, let there be some pent-up demand for these types of movies, and then reestablish a universe. And just knowing you're never going to replicate what was there before with the original run up until Endgame. That's not going to happen. But you can get back to making movies that made the MCU what it was, at least, and get back kind of closer to that trajectory. But I'm not going to be surprised at all if Kevin Feige ends up stepping down. I think he has 2 years left on his contract. So I think you're going to see some shakeups when it comes to Marvel. I think given Superman's performance, while not as good as even Man of Steel, but very likely they're going to move forward with that universe as Superman is going to end up beating Fantastic Four. So I think that is a plus for DC, as they haven't had that in a very long time. So DC has the potential to really set up their universe, see what they're able to do with it. But the MCU has a lot of question marks around it. And personally speaking, I don't think they have anybody to blame but themselves for the Fantastic Four not performing well and having a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the MCU itself. But either way, that's going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel as we do all this coverage here of theme parks and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what did you think about the Fantastic Four? And what do you think is to blame for its poor box office performance? And until next time, we will see you later.